it's Ella here, and today I am back with another resin video showing you how I make the cutest ring holders. These guys. And these are what I call mushroom ring holders. They have a cute little mushroom, a moth on this one, some have butterflies, and then we use some moss as the base. So it's very foresty like. It's literally the cutest thing that I have in the shop, and I will show you step by step how I make it. From preparing the mushrooms to pouring the ring holders and then patching up any imperfections, I will show you the entire process to creating these cute and functional pieces. Let's get started. Let's start off by going over the materials that we will be using for this project. First, we have our mini mushrooms. I got these from Michael's, and I believe they're for garden decor. Like they're supposed to be plant stakes or something. And then we have our mini paper butterflies. These are from Moth and Myth. All of the butterflies that I use in my work are made from paper because I don't think I can find butterflies this small, and I'm also a little uncomfortable working with real butterflies. Anyways, for this step, we will be gluing the butterflies to the mushrooms with super glue. This is what they will sort of look like. The glue that I am using for this step is Loctite Professional Liquid Super Glue. My bottle is a little messed up as you can see, but the glue still works perfectly fine, so I will use toothpicks to help me dab the glue onto the butterflies so I can attach them to the mushrooms. I have my foam board to stick the mushrooms right on top to make this process easier for me. This step is very important because for the ring holders, we are working upside down, so the top of the mushrooms will be going into the mold facing down. You will see exactly what I mean when we go do the pour. If we don't glue the butterflies to the mushrooms and they're two separate pieces, the butterflies can end up just floating around in the mold and you don't know exactly where it will be. I guess it depends on the effect that you're going for. Like if you prefer the butterfly just kind of flying around, then you can just leave this step and put the butterfly in. You just won't really have control over the butterfly. For the look that I'm going for, I like the butterfly sitting on top of the mushroom. So gluing the butterfly to the mushroom will ensure that it stays on the mushroom when I am pouring. So I folded my butterfly a little bit. Actually, this is a moth. I keep calling it a butterfly because I have a mix of moths and butterflies in my little container. It just feels a little bit more natural to say butterfly, but this is a moth. Anyways, so I gave my moth a little fold to make it seem like it's flying to the mushroom. That's the effect that I was going for. I want the moth to look like it's flying, so I folded it and I will be dabbing a little bit of glue right down the middle and then attach it to the mushroom. our mushrooms are now prepared. All the butterflies are glued to them, and now we're going to let the glue fully dry first. In the meantime, we will go mix up some resin and let that sit for a little bit. For my ring holders, I use Totabo's Thick Set Fathom Epoxy. It is a deep pour resin, and you can pour up to 2 inches deep or 4 inches if they are smaller. I will be using this measuring cup to measure and to mix my resin. It is from Totabo, and it already has guidelines to make the measuring process easier. For mixing, I have this plastic stick. That way we are not introducing bubbles into our resin. And these are the ring holder molds that we are using. They are from AAJ Molds, and this is their small size. Their molds are pricier because they are handmade, but the quality is so worth it for me. If you have other molds you want to use, feel free to use those. I also started using my vacuum chamber to pull out bubbles from my deep pour resins, and whenever I can actually, it allows me to mix vigorously and still get really clear results. I will show you how I measure and mix my resin. This is all according to the instructions. The resin has instructions on the back as well as a QR code to get more information if you need. This is a 2:1 ratio resin, and I am pouring the hardener first. I will be pouring the hardener to line 3 on this measuring cup. So with 3 part B, we need 6 part A, so we're pouring to line 9. I hope that was easy to follow and I explained it well, but if you are still confused, I will be doing a video specifically going over how to measure resin in different ratios. You can also leave a comment as well, and maybe I can clarify better through text. I just want to quickly talk about why I pour part B first. And as long as you measure out both parts correctly, it does not matter whether you pour part A first or part B. The most important part is getting the correct measurements. When I started out, I've always measured part A first, and I noticed that there was a little bit of sticky residue on the bottom of my cup almost all the time. That sticky residue was resin that was not completely mixed. I guess because part A is thicker, it was a little bit harder to scrape all of the resin, but once I started measuring with part B first, I rarely got that issue. This is just my observation and experience, so I just wanted to share that with you. Now we are mixing our resin, and you will see that it is very streaky and foggy. It's not clear. We use those streaks as indication to know when the resin is fully mixed. I cut out a good 5 minutes of the mixing because it makes me dizzy to edit a speedy mixing clip. Now I am scraping the sides to make sure I completely mix my resin. The streaks are a little bit hard to capture on camera, but there are streaks when I scrape the sides, and you can see that the resin is not foggy anymore. It's bubbly, but you can see through it. So that means the mixing is almost done. I think I ended up mixing another 3 minutes. I cut a lot of the mixing part again because you don't want to watch me just mixing for another 3 minutes. But yeah, now you can see that it is a lot more bubbly. We will take this to the vacuum chamber so it can pull out majority of the bubbles. I have several videos on my channel going over the vacuum chamber and bubble removing machines. It is basically this enclosed chamber connected to a pump that pumps out air from the chamber. That might have sounded a little confusing, but I will show you it in action here. I know how to use it and I know what it does, but I don't know the technology like that to explain it well, so I will not try to confuse you on that. My chamber has a dial in the front that shows you the pressure that's inside of the chamber. It is going down, which tells me that the air is being pulled out, which means the bubbles are being pulled out. So I actually never thought to use the vacuum chamber for resin until these smaller bubble remover machines came out like 2 years ago. The small bubble remover machines promoted for resin are a lot more affordable. I got this vacuum chamber 5 years ago and I paid $500 for it. It was recommended to me, so I just got it without doing too much research on the options. I also sell silicone molds, so this was primarily used for silicone, and now it's being shared for silicone and resin. It's still working perfectly fine with little to no maintenance, so this, I guess, is still worth it for me. I go into a lot more details in the other videos that are specifically for the bubble removing process. This does not work for all resins, so if you are interested in learning more of this process and the other machines, I will link the video to the top right corner and in my description. So these clips are sped up at 2 times speed. The entire process was just about 3 minutes. This will vary with the machine you use, and this process will reduce your work time. Since my resin has a 4 to 6 hour work time, it's okay. And again, I go over this in more details in the other videos, so check that out. Now you can see that after the vacuuming process, my resin mixture is pretty much bubble free. Now I will just leave the resin here to thicken up a little. I come back every 2 hours to check the viscosity and the temperature. I am looking for a honey-like consistency, and I do not want my resin to be overheating. If you've seen some of my older flower preservation videos, before the vacuum chamber, I would come back hourly to manually reduce as much bubble as I can using heat. This vacuum chamber definitely gives better results and it's less tedious, so I've been using it since. After this check, I waited another 2 hours, so I ended up pouring around the 4-hour mark after I mixed up the resin. Just a note that I give these time references, but if you're not using my resin and if you're not working in room temperature, my time references mean nothing to you. Different brands all have different formulas, so please follow the instructions on your resin and work based on that. So I just grabbed my mushrooms and I'm going to pull the rest of the supplies I need for my first pour. We will be pouring these ring holders in 3 layers, and this is the first one. For the materials for this first layer, we of course have our resin. You can see that it is a honey-like consistency, thicker than when we first mixed it. And then we have our ring holder molds. These are from AAJ molds, and I've been using them since they started 5 years ago. At least I think they started 5 years ago, but I've been using them for a long time. The quality has always been awesome, and it's so worth it for me. I've tried other shapes, but this one always sells. Then we have a silicone brush with a pointy tip. This ring holder has a pointy tip and the bubbles get trapped in it, so I use this brush to get the trapped bubbles. It has to be silicone because we don't want to scratch and ruin the mold using a different pointy tool. And then we have these clamps to help me hold the mushrooms in place. Without these clamps, the mushrooms can fall or tilt, and that's not the look that I'm going for. So using these clamps will help keep it in place. These mushrooms coming with sticks attached already is a plus to the process because otherwise I would have to attach my own. And finally, I will be using a little bit of dried moss for this layer. Okay, now let's make some ring holders. I want to point out that for this first layer, I just pour to the line where the crystal widens to, that edge. I pour up to here just so there won't be an obvious layer line in the final piece. Before I put the mushroom in the mold, I will coat the butterfly with the resin because the butterfly is made of paper. So this will help reduce the bubbles forming around the butterfly. So in this layer, I just add a little bit of moss so that the layers will appear more connected. The second layer is packed with moss, so if I don't do this, it will look like the mushroom is sitting on top of a flat layer of moss, and it just does not look as natural. The forest floor is not flat, so yeah, I tried to place the moss so it wraps around the mushroom and that way it won't fall too much. That is also one of the reasons why I let the resin thicken as well, so my moss does not sink to the bottom. Alright, let's finish the rest of these ring holders. Now I'm just checking in on my ring holders 24 hours later. The resin has hardened a bit, but it's still gel-like and tacky. You will notice when I squeeze the ring holder that it creates these ripples because it's not fully hardened yet. I'm pretty sure this was nighttime, so the next morning I mixed up some resin and let it sit off camera. It's the same mixing process as the first layer, so I didn't add that in again. This is the same resin as the first layer, Total Thick Set Fathom resin, and before we pour the second layer, I do not need the sticks anymore. They are sticking out of the ring holder, and so we are going to clip them off. I don't want the sticks to show through the moss or at the bottom of the ring holder. I try to get as close to the base of the stick as possible and clip from there. I am using wire cutters, but these sticks are a lot stronger than I expected, so I am struggling a bit. I got these mushrooms last year and it was not like this, so I guess they upped their quality, which is a good thing. Not for me, but yeah. I ended up trying a bunch of other different cutters that I had laying around the house and none of them worked, so I ended up calling for help. I had my boyfriend cut the sticks and I held onto them so they don't go flying into nowhere. Now that the sticks have been clipped off, I will prepare my moss. I cut them into the resin mixture to kind of coat them. There are larger pieces, so cutting them up makes it easier to work with. And I was hoping that coating all of the moss in resin would help reduce some bubbles, but I don't think it did, and I think it actually made it worse. You will see after we demold it. But yeah, I'll explain better when we see the results. Now my moss is all mixed up. It feels like everything inside my mixing bucket is coated. So now we are going to fill the ring holders with the moss. I do this very carefully and I try my best not to scratch the inside of the mold. I just scoop up some moss with the mixing stick and I fill in all of the gaps. Now I will show you the top view of where I poured up to and the mosses that are sticking out. It's not a lot because we already cut them up. This time I let the resin harden for 48 hours because I am using a different resin to finish up the piece. This very top layer is a much thinner layer, so there is no need for a deep pour resin that we have been using for the previous 2 layers. Before I pour that top layer on, I will snip off any moss that is sticking out. I do this step very carefully because some of them are close to the edge of the mold, and again, I do not want to ruin my mold. They are expensive, high quality, so I don't want to leave any scratches because it will reflect on future pieces. I do this cleaning step now because any of the moss sticking out will create an uneven surface. This is the bottom where the ring holder sits on the table, so if there are any moss sticking out, it will make the piece wobbly. There is a fix to an uneven bottom, which is sanding and top coating again, but we try to avoid that step if we can. Now I think they're all cleaned up, and the resin I am using for this layer is Totabo's high performance resin. I am using this resin because I only need to pour up to maybe an 1/8 inch, a 1/4 inch, which is what this resin allows for, and it will cure in about 8 hours. So I'm going to leave this overnight and not have to wait another 48-72 hours to demold. Just to show you a close-up of what the top looks like. They are even and flat, so we will have no problem with them sitting on the table. It is about 2 days later and I can finally demold the ring holders. It's been over a week since we started, so I'm really excited for them. The last layer was already cured the next day, but I usually like to leave my last layer to cure longer. Resin has a demold time and a full cure time where it hardens more after you demold it. It took a little bit to demold the ring holder, but I finally got it out. Look at how cute it turned out. It's so magical with the moss, the mushrooms, and the Luna moth. The prism design of this ring holder also creates rainbows, and it's just so cute. But we are not done yet. I will demold the rest, and we actually have one more step to do, and that is patching up any imperfections, so I will show you that right after. So now we are going to closely inspect each of the ring holders. I am mainly focusing on the moss layer, that second layer that we poured with just a bunch of moss. Moss releases a lot of bubbles and sometimes they can get trapped, leaving a hole in the piece. If I had a little bit more resin when I poured the second layer, it may have helped, but we can't go back and change that now, so the fix is to patch up the bubbles. That's just a mental note for next time. You can see the bubbles are a lot more obvious in this yellow one. A bubble like that is obviously not okay, so that is what we will patch up. For this step, I will use UV resin. It allows me to take my time to fill in the bubbles because it's cured with a UV light, so whenever I'm ready, I just put it under the lamp. I don't really have to worry about work time or anything. The resin that I am using is Total UV resin. I find that this one cures nice and hard. It doesn't leave any sticky residue for me. I will be using a dotting tool, the skinniest one that I can find, and just carefully fill in the bubble. If I get the UV resin out of line or need to do any cleanup, I will use baby wipe. Once I'm ready, I will put the ring holder under the UV lamp for 90 seconds. I want to make a note here that I should have faced my lamp away from the cup of UV resin that I was using. Because the light reached it, the resin in my cup started curing too. That's why when we're working with UV resin, we do it away from the window and sunlight because the sunlight will cure our resin as well. Anyways, as my first ring holder is curing, I will work on patching up the other ones. I tried to use whatever resin was still left in the cup, but it didn't quite work out, so I just poured myself another cup of UV resin. This is the result of a patching up with the UV resin. It's a little dimpled in because the UV resin shrinks as it cures. You can put another small thin layer over it to flatten it out. The results in general of this patching up will not be perfect though, but it is much better than having a hole in the piece. You can even out the entire piece by top coating after this step, but it's a lot of work, so that is up to you. When I am done with the cup of UV resin, I will put that under the light to cure. Then I can remove the resin from the cup and reuse the cup in the future. I am using a plastic medicine cup, so that's why I'm able to do this. You might not be able to do this with other cups. I will finish the rest of the patching up off camera just so I can focus better and not have to worry about knocking over the camera and stuff. Once I get all of the bubbles for a piece, I will put it back under the UV lamp for another 2 to 3 minutes just to make sure it fully cures. Now here are all the ring holders complete and close up. They are super cute and waterproof, so I always tell people they're perfect for the bathroom or the kitchen. You can put your rings on them when you are washing your hands or doing the dishes, stuff like that. A lot of people actually get them just for shelf decor too because they are very different and unique. And of course, I can't forget the shot where I put the ring on the ring holder. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed making these ring holders with me. If you did, please give this video a like and let me know in the comments what you think about it. All feedback is appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for future resin tutorials. I will see you next time.